In this video, I'll be explaining the positive edge triggered JK flip-flop. So in order to make this JK flip-flop a positive edge triggered one, we have to put an inverter after the clock pulse, and this is because the default JK flip-flop is negative edge triggered in PSpice. Okay. So positive edge triggered flip-flops only react after the positive edge of the clock. Otherwise, no matter what the data lines, or in this case J and K, do between the rising edges of our clock, our output will not change. Okay, so before the first clock pulse, we can see J and K are at 0. And our gates are initially set at 0. So the output of Q will remain at 0. Because when J equals KH equals 0, our output does not change. So as we can see, when we approach this first rising edge, J and K remain at 0, so our output will remain at 0. Therefore, Q bar will also be equal to 1, because Q bar is the complement of Q. So as we approach our second clock pulse, we can see that J rises to logic level 1. So when J rises to logic level 1 and K remains at logic level 0, the output will be set to 1. So when we see this rising edge right here, we'll see our output Q change to 1 and Q bar change to 0, in which it does. Okay, and then now after our second clock pulse, J remains at 1, but K also goes to logic level 1. This means the next rising clock edge, the output will be complemented. And we can see that as we go through. And now Q equals 0, Q bar equals 1. So after this third clock pulse right here, J and K go to logic level 0 at the same time. Now, as we approach the next rising edge, the output will remain the same since J and K are 0. So as we get to this next positive edge on our clock, we see our output remains the same. So once we approach our fifth clock pulse, we see that J rises to logic level 1 and K remains at 0. This means that the output Q will be set to 1 the next clock pulse's rising edge. And since J and K remain at those values during the fifth clock's pulse rising edge, the output will go to 1. And we can see Q goes to 1 and Q bar will go to 0. Okay, and then now we're going to be approaching our sixth clock pulse. So after the fifth clock pulse, the values of J and K remain the same, so the output Q will also remain the same. Now between the 6th and 7th clock pulse, we see that K goes to logic level 1, but then back down to logic level 0 before our next positive clock edge. So this value does not do anything to our output. So as we approach over here to the 7th, we see that J goes back down to 0. Since J equals KH equals 0, our output will remain the same, which in this case is 1, so Q bar will equal 0.